Here it is. Hold on. Look at that.
Back it up a little. The glare is so bright. There we go. Let it settle in. Oh, classic Brian.
I just was playing because I love the game. Like, and it's scary to me.
It's really easy for the game to become a job.
Below 6 in his hands. Listless now.
Man, kids out there playing the game, staying out of trouble, competing. I love it. Hey, man, congrats on Friday.
Thanks, man. We really needed that one. As a community and as a program, we needed that win. So,
not bad for starting a 13-year-old quarterback.
Dude, started a 13-year-old quarterback. Another 13-year-old running back also got like 4 or 5 reps. Yeah. So, welcome to Tennessee football. And now, it's like not. I mean, I just want to preface it saying they're very, very talented. Like it's not like, oh, we don't have anybody else and that's why they're playing. No, like they're very talented.
They wouldn't be out there if they weren't capable.
Right, because like we're not suffering from not having athletes here. You know what I mean? Like we have some pretty good athletes. It's just they're very, very talented for their grade, and they're playing because they're going to end up obviously being the basis program and next year be the guys, and so that's fine.
For sure. It is funny. I mean, obviously there's a difference, like, 8th to 9th grade, there's a difference. I remember my last year at Salina, we had a running back who he's a junior now, and he's a stud. He's I think 15 or 1,800 yard rusher as a sophomore. Like, he's a stud. And it took about a week and a half into the season, and when he was a freshman, we pulled him up. We're playing Anna, big game, yada yada. I think he played like 5 plays on offense, and one of them was the 2-point conversion to put it within 3 so we could get the stop and have the chance to tie it. It's like, if we don't get this, like we're really digging ourselves in a hole. And it's like, hey kid, you played 3 snaps all game. All right, get in there and catch this ball. and he did. And then, but he'd repped it all week, and there's those moments where you're like, he's a freshman, but he's not, right? Like,
right.
He's a freshman in age, but he's not in football IQ and physical stature and things of that nature. We did it with a sophomore tight end as well. Because we had a senior tight end, but like if we wanted to get into some double tight stuff, this kid was big bodies, physical. He played like 4 snaps that game. One of them was like a tight end pop on like 3rd and 6, and he just gets mauled off the line and makes a one-handed catch, and you're like, job, come back over here.
Yeah.
You're done.
That's why you're in.
Great job.
That's the thing. So, I think you have to be really analytical, like, especially when you're having like a season that's not to the standard. When you're in the adversity, I guess when you're in the pickle of having an older guy and a younger guy, you got to do a really good job of saying, okay, what are the mistakes that the older guys are making? What kind of mistakes? Because like it can't just be like, well, we're losing, we're gonna play with the young kids. Like, no. What mistakes is he making? Knowing that what mistakes the younger kid's going to make, the mistakes he's going to make are the ones that you have to make in order to grow, right? He's going to make the mistakes that you have to have from experience. So, like, what he's going to do. It's being very, very analytical and smart about the mistakes the older kid's making. Are these mistakes to where, we're going to end up living with the 13-year-old kid's mistakes or not? That's what you got to kind of have to make a decision of moving forward. And will it also be a situation where is that, the young kid that we're about to play, in our case he's 13, but like, where is he from a maturity perspective, emotionally, mentally? If we don't have a lot of success around him, will that ruin him? That's the other thing I think you got to consider. But ultimately, it also comes down to what's best for the team. Like, it's this guy best for the team, or is this guy best for the team? I think that at the end of the day, you consider all those things. So the ultimate question is what's going to be better for the team.
Yeah, and I've always, full disclosure, I've always been like, I'm very pro play young kids, play them often, play them early.
I agree.
For the obvious reasons, right? They're only going to get better with the live bullet experience. I think there's a pretty hard and obvious ceiling whenever you're playing JV sub varsity football versus, varsity football. And I think that, right, wrong, or indifferent, I think that I've never been somebody that's hesitated to do that.
Yeah.
But I do think that you have to, the quality of those reps and the like reaching the full potential of that experience comes through having, strong leadership, senior class, etc. So when you see programs that do have like heavy senior classes, and they start 5, 6, maybe 7 seniors on each side of the ball, and you plug a freshman or sophomore or 2 or 3 of those guys in there, right? Those like inexperienced mistakes can be covered up by the leadership and the teammates around them. Whereas like I do want to say that me being like pro play young guys doesn't mean that I've ever been like, screw the seniors, start all the freshmen.
Right.
You're sending the future of a program, to the firing range when they're 14, 15 years old it's just not smart. So, but I've seen both sides. I've seen the young kid that gets pulled up because you think he might be able to help you, but then you realize there's a little bit bigger gap than you anticipated. And if there's not like a conscious effort to like, man, we got to find ways to get him on the field. We got to find ways to rotate him in. You're looking at potentially wasting a year, and you got to be mindful of that. But the flip side of it, I think, and even extreme's a bad word, but in a more extreme situation, like with your 8th grade guys, because of the private school, I think you have to be even more mindful of that because of the mental, emotional, much less the physical maturity of them.
Yeah. I think, like for context with us right now, like our O-line's pretty good. They're pretty big. It's left tackle's committed to Virginia. He's 6'6". Left guard, now he's a sophomore, but he's 6'6". Seniors, or the center's a 6'3", junior with a year under his belt. Right guard is 6'5", whatever he is. I think he might be 350 going to Colorado. And then right tackle 6'7", senior. And, he's got a year under his belt as well, or maybe 2 actually. And so for us, it was like, okay, we are going to go young because we feel like right now that's what's best for the team. And in reality, if he is going to be a kid, and for me, this is any position there is, if he is a kid that we foresee possibly starting next year, then we would rather him get those game-like reps now, because you can only emulate so much in spring ball. You really want a young kid to get the feel for what a Friday night is, and those mistakes for what a Friday night might happen to him out of the way. That way now he can carry those mistakes, carry the wisdom, the knowledge, whatever it may be, into the offseason, into spring ball. Because to me, it's like, if he's going to end up playing the next year, go ahead and get those reps. Because again, like if he doesn't, and then you're going to spring ball, it's just not the same as it is when he goes to Friday Night Lights. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. But because obviously down here this situation doesn't come up, but what's the short-term, long-term kind of ripple effect of pulling the trigger of being like, all right, junior high Johnny, like you're in on Friday?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things that legally, from what middle school sports can he continue to play, what can he not? There's all those things. I think, for us moving forward, it's okay. What does the quarterback room look like moving forward? Even in terms of backup and third string, like, because generally, and you just know how it is, but like the younger you go, like you have some older guys in the room. Like how is that room going to look going into the spring? How's the competition looking in the spring? It's like, I think the ripple effect is moving forward. What's your quarterback room look like? Keeping that cohesiveness together. What I've tried to preach all season long, especially on Friday night as we've kind of gone back and forth, is like, guys, hey, I just want you to know I love you in every single way, but the decisions that are made in regards to this business are simply for what's best for the team. Period. And you've got to do a great job at seeing that and knowing that that's how we're looking at these decisions. It's not a political thing, which I think every kid ends up, thinking it becomes. It's no, like, what's best for the team. That's the ultimate, final straw that we're asking ourselves, and that's why every decision is made for every quarterback, receiver, for every position. So I mean, yeah, you're gonna have a ripple effect when you're playing a young kid. Now I think there's also positive ripple effects. I think when you're playing a young kid, for example, let's say you have a really young offensive line that's really, really good, and you played 2 or 3 that season. Well, the chances, and again, private school ball, like, it's just a little bit more wild, wild west than it is in Texas. You have a good chance of a possible quarterback moving in because he knows he has a really good offensive line, right? And so it's the same with like receivers. You go young with a quarterback, and that young quarterback shows that he can, throw the big boy balls and do that type of stuff. There's probably gonna be some receivers that are like kind of like Lipscomb Academy, and let me check out that school, and people that want to move in, and there's just more. The word, or I should say, the name of the school is out there a little bit more when you're playing a young guy that's having success, and it just helps your school out that much more for getting kids and stuff like that.
Yeah, and I think that's not. I mean, I think the process might be the big difference, but I don't think that that's something that's unique to private school versus public school. I think that
Right.
talent attracts talent, winning attracts winning. When guys see someone their age, their peer, go to a place, have success, and they know that they're going to be there for the next couple of years, the potential of them joining that program, yeah, they're higher. And as long as they're, as long as there's not anything outside the governing body, the UIL or whatever y'all's governing body, as long as you're not circumventing that system and guys are making those decisions based off of what they feel is best for them and their family, it's rare that you're going to find a coach that really has an issue with it. I think, and we can't play dumb to this, I think the biggest thing is that you have to make sure that, like, I remember watching a Football Life with James Harrison, and, he got cut by the Steelers by it was like 3 or 4 times. And the last time they bring him in, because the guy got injured, they're like, he's a camp body. He's like, I'm going into camp, and I'm not even trying to make the Steelers. I'm just trying to have a good couple weeks of practice, get some practice tape on so I can go make one of the 31 other rosters. And you just have to make sure that, like, playing that young guy isn't going to lead to you facilitating their recruiting tape to go to a better private school program or to somewhere else. Because just because I sit here and say that, as long as it's not as long as it's not outside the rules of the governing body, doesn't mean that people agree with me and always follow the rules of the governing body. We're not going to sit here and play ignorant and pretend like somebody that's connected to this program or that program, it may not be a coach, but it might be, the secretary of the booster club that's making a phone call or having Timmy send a text that says, hey, let them know that, quarterback job's going to open up and we're not afraid to play freshmen, especially ones that have starts under their belt, blah, blah, blah. And I think that's where you have to be careful. But I think that touches on what we touched on last week, is that if you have a transformational relationship with that athlete, your ability to have those hard conversations is going to open up the dialogue to clearing that air and answering those questions and making sure that there's a plan. Because at the end of the day, I think that's what parents want to hear. They just want to hear that there's a plan. Here's my kid. He's 13, 14, 15 years old. What's the plan? We're trying to do this. As long as you can paint a picture of a path, hey, coach, let's ride. But you can't control what everybody else is doing, within the confines of the rules or outside of them.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the thing. It's like, when you play a young kid and he has success, like, I'm not an idiot. Like, those kids are going to get phone calls. Like, it's going to happen. And to me, it comes back to what your point is about being, more transformative and not transactional. I think the hard thing at the high school level, where it's slightly different than college, is the high school. While the high school kid does have a say, it's more of a say from the parents than it is the kid. And while you may have a relationship with the parents, it's probably not near as close as it is with the kid. Whereas when you're in college and you're dealing with that kid 24/7, the kid's the one that's making the decision, not the parents, like 99% of the time at the college level. You know what I mean? So, like, that's where I think high school gets a little bit more sticky, because, again, that stuff's going to happen. You said it, like, you can't play stupid to the fact that, if there's a big time quarterback at, whatever, I don't know, let's just say Saginaw. Shout out AJ, right? But, like, Saginaw, like, there's going to be some
Nolan
parents
Catholic's
that are,
probably got somebody talking to him.
Yeah, yeah. Or like if there's a big
No
time
offense,
quarterback
Nolan
at
Catholic is the first private school
yeah.
that popped in my head. My
But
bad.
let's just keep using Saginaw. I don't know why. I mean, it just popped in my head. We were talking college before the podcast. That's why AJ popped in my head too. Let's say it's Saginaw, and all of a sudden now there's a receiver that's new in town. Like, you know what, mom, dad, like, can we please go buy a home in that area? Like that happens all the time. And like we can't play stupid at the fact that that happens. So whether you're playing young kid, they're gonna get phone calls. You just gotta rely on your confidence that you can develop that kid better than anybody else. And that's kind of the approach that I take, not from like an arrogant perspective, but to me, it's like, especially with the setting that we have here, which is very college-like. Like, like I think what's unique here, and you and I haven't ever discussed this, but what's unique here is we have a program um, called Endeavor, where essentially, like, based on the kid's needs and his class schedule, kids around here, if they get into that program, they can be done by noon. Now they have, online stuff that they got to do and all that stuff, but like it can be done by noon, right? Which means they can literally be sitting right here with me at noon, talking for the next 3 hours about, hey, here's third down today. Here's 3rd and 3 to 6. Here's 7 to 9. Are you good on this trip? Cool. Like that's what's unique here that a lot of places, don't have. And so again, you just got to rely on your own development. The kid sees that he can make you, or that you can make him 1% better. And ultimately, to the situation in the school is at a good spot for him as well. So, but yeah, those are all things that happen when you play a young quarterback.
I think the biggest thing to ensure that it works out best for the kid, the coach, and the program is that relationship has got to be laid in honesty and confidence, the ability to have those hard conversations. Because if not, then that outside buzz is going to get pulled in. But that kind of leads me into something that I want to talk to you about, because our Friday night didn't go as good as your Friday night. We ran into the number 7 team in the state, and there was a lot. We had won a few games to start the year. There was a lot of conversation about what that game was going to look like, but we fell short. Kids played their tail off. All the coach speak that comes with that. But also shout out to Honey Grove and Coach Fletcher. Coach Mack, their defense coordinator, is responsible for 3 to 5 sleepless nights for me a year. Sometimes just randomly in the off season, I'll wake up and think that I got 2 stand-up ends coming off the edge, and we still can't run the ball. So they did a great job, and our kids did a great job. We just we fell short against a good football team. But one of the things that I talked to the kids about that I think connects to this is all of these things have to be worked out in who you are as a program, whatever your direction and your foundation and your path is. One of the things I told them after the game was, we're not going to change what we do just because the outcome's different and we don't like it. And I think that that's really important. It was like 4 or 5 years ago, Texas Tech basketball starts off like they're like 1-8 or something. Maybe not that bad. I don't know. But a media member asked the head coach, what do you do? Like, how do you right the ship? He's like, we're a good basketball team. We're not going to change who we are. We're not going to change what we do. It's one step in, down the line in the process. And I think that that's something that the longer I do this job, and I'm not just a play caller or an assistant, and not to diminish those roles, they're just different. But I feel like the longer I do this, the more appreciation I have for explicitly stating those things to the kids. Because I think a lot of the times last year I took for granted that, like, well, everybody knows that. And everybody doesn't know that. And everybody doesn't think that way. And everybody doesn't remind themselves of those things. And that's our job. And if you're not doing that, then, your path and your direction is going to start to get a little bit more difficult. It's going to sway right and left, and you're going to create unnecessary adversity if you're not continuously pushing that same process-driven message. And I know that this season for y'all hasn't gone exactly, how you would have liked to see. So I think that there's merit to what you guys have done, and being able to make those kind of personnel changes without changing your identity and without changing who you are as a coach. Because I think that's the biggest thing, is that kids have got to understand that, Friday Night Lights, Billy Bob Thornton says it best. Like, the only difference between winning and losing is the way the outside world looks at you, right? Like, their numbers on a scoreboard, and this is way more about process than it is about product. And unfortunately, sometimes you got to hit adversity and you got to stumble to really appreciate that.
Yes, I agree with that. That's you said that very well too. And Coach Lee always talks about how, and for us, obviously, it's Friday. So like, I told the kids this on Saturday yesterday. I said, guys, Friday is just a lag effect of Monday through Thursday in the process of which you take. And so, like, to me, I'm always curious how coaches handle, like, when you're playing, and I'll use you guys for an example, like, when you're playing a superior team and you get beat, I just think, you got to be very matter of fact. And guys, we just got beat tonight. Like, this does not mean that we need to change our scheme. It does not mean that what our scheme is wrong. Like, that team was better than us tonight. It just is what it is. And that's where we are at currently as a program. Now, moving forward, so long we do what we're supposed to do, that changes. So that's just where we're at tonight. And I think some coaches get scared to say that because I think they want to always feel like, no, we just made these mistakes and that's why we got beat. It's okay to say that, like, that team is better. Like, you're not always going to play a team where our 11 are better than their 11. Like, there's times where you're going to play a team where all 22 are better than all 22 of what you got. And there's times where you can still win those games, but there's also times where, majority of the time, where you're probably going to get beat there, and that's okay. I think at the end of the day, people just want to be told the truth. And I think when you keep it real like that with your kids, and hey, this is our process, here's what we do. Here's the sword that we're going to die on. Here's what I choose to die on, and I hope that you die on it with me. Because if you do that, then we'll continue to evolve. But I think you just every Friday night, kind of, here's where we are, here's what happened tonight, and here's how the process is going to keep on going. I think if you keep it real like that with the kids, they'll appreciate that more than you trying to always create some BS reason as to why you lost the game.
Yeah, and I think that, it's really important to make sure that, I heard it at coaching school a long time ago. I heard, life isn't all about football, but football is all about life. And I think the way that you handle those situations is going to speak volumes about who the kid's going to be, who the program's going to be, who the coach is. So you have to be very mindful, and you have to be very, poignant in how you handle that adversity, because how you respond is going to be reflected in your players and in your assistants and on down the line, and your water boys, etc. And if you're not mindful of that, that's when disarray and the bickering and the infighting and the disagreeing messages start being whispered in kids' ears. And it actually brings me to something else that I wanted to talk about. Because I saw something that, without knowing all of the details, I saw something Saturday that happened Friday night that it genuinely upset me. From a big picture standpoint, not from, a little picture isolated incident standpoint. There was a game Texas high school football game that was played. It was a blowout win, and, clock strike 0. And one of the best parts about, high school football, I think, high school sports in general, is that there's that initiative and that push for the sportsmanship and aspect, and I think that reaffirms the growth through adversity. To being able to hold your head up, look your opponent in the eye that, maybe they kicked your teeth in that night, but hey, respect is not given, it's earned. And we're going to go keep our, earn their respect through the way that we behave. And this game ended, and one of the teams, including the coaches, just left, just walked off the field. And again, I don't know the details. I don't know what happened during the game. I have not watched that game. It wasn't live streamed anywhere that I know of. Here's what I know. It was a lopsided score. And when one team went to shake hands at the 50, the other team walked off and didn't do it, coaches included. And to me, there is a very, very, very short list of incidences and situations where that should be even considered a possibility. If we're going to have fun and we're going to celebrate and we're going to bump shoulders and point and high five and dance and do all that stuff, if we're gonna celebrate with that kind of enthusiasm and energy when things are going good, right? You better be humble in defeat. You better be able to be respectful and take that medicine and learn from it. Because if you don't, then that was purely a loss. There was no lesson. And it bothers me because I know that there's going to be justification of actions on both sides. And point blank period, that's wrong. But now those kids that were involved in that game on both sides are going to hear differing stories and disagreeing points of views. And at the end of the day, if you got in this for wins and losses, you won't last. Point blank period. And to me, that behavior is of someone who's in it just for the wins and losses. They're pissed off. They're upset because things didn't go the way they wanted. They felt cheated by the refs, cheated by the other team. They didn't like it. Oh, they scored that extra touchdown, this, that, and the other, blah, blah, blah. Bull crap. Be a man. Look your opponent in the eye. Set the example that you want your kids to follow and lead from the front. And to me, it's just a bone that I wanted to pick because I fear, the whole BTA trend and everything coming out like that. If you're on either ends of those spectrum, if you're disrespectful in victory at the end of a game or disrespectful in defeat at the end of the game, you're part of the problem. 100%, 1000%. If you're either coaching it or allowing it, as you said to me 3 years ago.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's always important to remember that you can't play this game unless there's an opponent. And so respect, honor, and appreciation should always be given for that opponent and the fact that they're allowing you to compete against them. I agree with what you said. There are certain instances, very, very, very few, to where I would agree with not shaking hands. Primarily, the only one is if it is a possible violent situation because the game got that intense and for some reason the head coach can't control his own kids, to where if they were to say good game and shake hands, another fight would break out. It's really the only situation I would ever see where I would agree and say, yeah, go ahead and split separate ways, let emotions, kind of decompress and then go on about your business. Aside from that, to me, it's all on the head coach to be able to have enough self-control internally to externally control his own team to say, okay, guys, I know emotions are high. And again, I have no idea what happened. I just saw the 9-second clip and it was like, all right, that's not it. To be able to grab your team and say, hey, put your helmet on, okay, shake their hand, show respect and appreciation for the fact that we can share this game together, and let's get out of here. You have to be able to do that, because the moment that you can't control your team in that setting, to me, you don't have control of your team at all, period.
Oh yeah, and you have zero control over the future of the team, the future of the schedule, right? So this happens. Who's to say that the next opponent isn't going to pull something along the lines of, if that's how they're going to behave, we're not going to play, right? And now those kids that these are the only games that you're guaranteed. Well, you just lost one that you were guaranteed because you don't know how to act. And right. I think that's the biggest issue. Is there's not enough understanding of short-term decisions and long-term consequences. There's not enough big picture conversations going on. Did our game go the way that I wanted it to? Absolutely not. Did our kids ever quit fighting? Absolutely not. Did they play their tails off? Yes. Did we have adversity? Were there hard conversations that had to happen through the game? 100%. But you know what? You keep your head up, you put your freaking helmet on, you say good game, and you go over and you stand in front of the band for the fight song like we have the other 5 times that we've played, and we've won. You don't change what you do just because the outcome changed. Because if you do that, you've learned nothing. You have no idea why we're out here. You have no idea what opportunities and what growth you're throwing away because you're so focused on your ego, your pride, and worrying about being embarrassed or anything along those lines. It would just be a hard sell for me for anybody to explain that situation and be like, well, this, and this happened. And me be like, oh, okay, well, that makes sense. The harsh reality of it is that if you can't take a group of 30 to 50 teenagers and say, shut your mouth, stand in line, shake their hand, and go to the band, then we got way bigger issues. And maybe those issues had been there before that guy got there. I don't know. Yeah. But they exist, and that should be the point of emphasis should be fixing that, not winning games.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, as a head coach, obviously, you're the model of what parents are obviously begging for whomever their son's head coach is should be the model for what they would aspire to be. And this is probably a completely different subject, but like one thing that I've been trying to tell my kids offensively, after every practice, and I told this to them on last Thursday, was something that I'm personally working on is like compartmentalization of your process. And so I told them what that means, because they looked at me like, what did you just say? I was like, but what that means is like, to me, like the moment that, so for example, the moment that practice is over, okay, and we get our break, the first thing I do is I go ahead and take my practice schedule, my practice script, right? I write on it, throughout the whole practice. And the first thing I do is I go inside and I edit on our ready list whatever adjustments that I made throughout practice. If I wanted one, to go from 12 personnel to, 12 Mustang, I'm going to make that change. And then whenever I leave the office, I now am flipping and compartmentalizing and going into the process of being with my family. To me, the reason why I've been trying to do that is I feel like those are many triggers that allow my brain mentally and emotionally, even spiritually, to lock into being in that moment presently instead of hanging on to whatever I impulsively just felt. It's helping me do a better job of, okay, I'm a coach here. Okay, well, now I'm an OC and I'm changing the script here. Okay, well, now I'm a dad here. Well, now I'm a husband here. And it's not to be robotic, but it's just, ways I feel like, and it all ties back to, okay, what's our process post game? It's to put the helmet on. It is to go shake hands regardless of what the score is, because that is just our process and that's just what we do. I think if you do that, it can help kind of lower what's going on in the heart and in the head. And you're now just more of a 30,000 foot view of what your body is looking at. And okay, this is a process, this is what we go do. I think it kind of helps, lower those emotions. Maybe I'm an idiot and I don't know what I'm talking about, but that's what I'm trying to do right now.
Well, I think that we've said this too many times, there's 1,000 ways to skin a cat. And I think that the point of that process is you're trying to be objective in your movement and decision making and not emotional in your movement and decision making. And so having that internal dialogue of like, okay, turn this switch off, turn this switch on is simply that kind of tick of making a conscious decision, right? We never have to tell ourselves to breathe until we think about breathing, right? So if you're going through that, then you know that there's these checkpoints that you're going to hit and you don't have to worry about overflow from one aspect to the next. You don't have to take practice home, because before you walk in the door, you're saying, okay, this switch is off, this switch is on. I know the girls are going to run up and grab, say daddy, and want to do this and do that. And I've got to be locked in to do that. I say all that in, what sounds like 100% support and parallel in that, but I am wretched at it. And it has been something that I've been actively trying to get better at. Because early in my career, I was not going to take work home, but I was not taking work home because I was single and selfish. I'm going to leave work at work so I can go, do whatever I want. And now I've got to make sure that I'm actively, consciously having that conversation of I'm not going to bring work home to be unselfish, because bringing work home is selfish because it's what I want to do. And I need to go in here and change a diaper and do some dishes, maybe go mow the yard and this, that, and the other. And that's what I mean when I say that, like, life isn't all about football, but football's all about life, right? Because that's the same thing of switching from offense to defense, from individual to pass hole. That's all that is.
Yeah, very well said. Very well said.
It's all not doom and gloom and anger and judgment over here. We were talking a little bit before about, first off, that we met 11 years ago, and the absurdity, because on one hand it feels like 5 minutes and on the other it feels like 50 years. I mean, you held up a picture and I still had hair, so that's how you know it was a long time ago. But I think something that
we met this long ago.
oh my, I didn't think you were actually going to show it. Jeez.
We were so stupid.
And that was from Tarleton. And
yeah,
I want to paint this picture because there is so much invaluable kind of shaping that went on in that year that I think had a way bigger impact on me than I ever considered it to then. You were already there in that program, part of that process. I pestered my way in, and it's a Division II program. Life is very different from what I kind of saw at a distance when I was in Waco. And my introduction was, okay, yeah, but our first game and your first job is going to be at AT&T Stadium, on a relatively big stage for the Lone Star Conference against Midwestern State, which was awesome. But we go into that game, and the head coach had made a point in our conversation. He said, I want you to work on the defensive side because I think it'll help you grow as a coach because you spent your whole life offensively minded, which he was right. There was a lot that I learned from that perspective. What I also learned is that the other reason he did that is because the offensive side was overloaded with young help. Between student assistants and graduate assistants, you guys were covered. All those jobs were covered. And the thing that I quickly learned when we got to AT&T and it dialed down to kickoff is that was the harsh reality that the defensive side was understaffed, because you and Ryan Martin are sitting on the other side of the press box and you guys are dividing and conquering, tracking information, down, distance, hash, play call, stunts, fronts, coverage, right? You got two guys looking at all these things. And then it's just me and my poster board over here. And I talked to the defensive coordinator leading up to the game. I was like, okay, what am I specifically looking for? And he said, you need to draw out their primary formations, but you need to have space on the board for any new formations they might give us. Mind you, this is the first game of the year, so it's all pretty much hearsay. There was like 2 formations that I had pre-drawn. And then I need you to track down, distance, hash, gain, loss, call, and whatever play they run, I need you to tally it within that formation square. And I said, me? Just me? Is there somebody else coming? How does this work? And then the day of the game, he tells me, by the way, that poster board needs to be hanging in the locker room by the time the head coach walks in for halftime. And we were at AT&T, and they didn't put us in a press box, or they didn't put us in the coach's box. They put us in a suite and put headsets on the counter, and I had no idea where I was. So I have no idea what actually happened that game. All I could do was try and watch the replay on the Jumbotron because I was trying to write so much information down. And you guys are over there. Ryan's cracking a Dr. Pepper and has a bag of like pretzels. And I was like, oh, you have time to eat? I don't even know if I have time to go to the bathroom today. I might have to wait till tomorrow.
Yeah. I mean, most of that is the lack of structure from a decision-making perspective. And then the other part of that is like, welcome to Division II football at the time. Hopefully it's made strides since then, but like, welcome to Lone Star Conference. Here's your 1 GA you get. And yeah, no, you're right. I mean, like I did the coverage, basically like the coverage shell, coverage type, coverage family, some D&D and hash and stuff like that. And it was being called out by another full-time coach at the time. And I was just kind of like, oh, I agree. Or you said 6 and I saw 3. So one of us is dramatically wrong. But I'm good. Got to watch the play. Like, oh, good throw, Aaron Doyle. Whatever. Meanwhile, you're like looking like you're drawing a canvas in the back.
Just having a panic attack every kickoff. Just like, man, here we go. Well, don't screw this up. And like the worst would be I'm writing all this information down and I would have a certain number of like calls, right? Number of plays run. And it would be very different. Not like, oh, there was a false start here, so like repeat call, blah, blah, blah. It'd be very different from the number of tallies on the board. And I'm like, this just Pray nobody notices because there's no fixing it now. And then the caveat was it gets close to halftime and we finished the first half on defense. So like I got to stay there and track that information. And the only thing ringing in my head is the defense coordinator saying that poster board better be hanging up by the time the head coach gets in the locker room. And I have no idea where I am. I'm in AT&T Stadium in a suite. There's not like a sign. The people standing around have no idea where I'm supposed to go. So I rip it off the board and take off running. And I go down like an employee stairwell. I find an elevator. I go down like 6 floors. I go back into the stairs until I'm finally like under it. And I'm like, I have to remember where I went to get here. I run in, slap it on the board, and I'm like about to keel over because I haven't run that far in God knows how long. And everybody just comes strolling in. And I'm like, I hate all of you. Did anybody say, hey, turn here? Is anybody worried about this but me? Especially because the head coach didn't walk in for like another 5 minutes. But how would I know that? I've never run this Spartan race before. I have no idea where I'm going. And so that was being just thrown straight into the fire. We win the game in dramatic fashion. You know, that season was a whirlwind. But I will say through all of that, I still remember it was either, I'm pretty sure it was Commerce because we played Commerce at home. That was the first time that I tracked something and was able to voice it at halftime. And the defense coordinator make an adjustment to stopping their run game and then seeing implemented it. And it was like the coolest feeling in the world, right? Because everything up to that point was just like scribbles on a piece of paper, whether it was in marker or pencil. And then being able to, well, what is it that, what are these positive plays? What is different about these? And being able to go, well, they're running same side power. So it's like, it's essentially a quick trap, blah, 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 blah. And he was like, oh, okay, we haven't seen that. Here's what we need to do. What situations are they calling it? And that being able to say those 3 or 4 words, I was like, I'm the smartest man in the world. I was born to do this. Everything I've done up to this point has just paid off right now.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I love that. That is the best feeling too, especially as a young coach, because nobody gets enough, recognition as a young coach. Not that you should, but there's definitely not enough. And so I'm sure in that moment you kind of felt like, let's go. This is my time.
And the thing that reminded me of that was, Connor Stallions is doing doing the media circuit right now. And I just saw him on Bussin' with the Boys. And right, wrong, or indifferent, believe it, don't believe it, all the things, right? When it comes to his role at Michigan and whatever. Here's what I know from listening to him, watching the documentary, hearing interviews. Connor Stallions is the definition of whatever your job is, treat it like the most important job in the world.
Mm-hmm.
I heard him tell a story when he was talking about, okay, what do you want me to do? And the first thing they told him to do was we need a wind summary of kickoff times from last year. Which that could have easily been however many games they played, 13, 14, be like, all right, here was the wind advisory at kickoff, right? It was 4 miles an hour out of the southeast. It could have been 14 lines of that. But what he did was he created an 18-page document that had the wind direction and speed at the time of every kickoff throughout a game. So opening kickoff, after every touchdown, halftime, etc. And its impact on where the ball came in trajectory and where it landed. And it's like, okay, dude, that is a level of like, own your job, whatever your job is, that it's crazy to say out loud, but the fact of the matter is that's why he was good at whatever he was going to do.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I watched the documentary, or at least the first half, and you could tell, and he said multiple times, I got to treat today as if today is the most important day for this program. And people say that, but when you actually live it on a day-to-day basis, those people are special. And he truly farmed his land. You want to have a really good ecosystem that flourishes, each person better farm their land to the best of their ability. And that's what he did. And he was very, very good at it.
So shout out to Connor Stallions. I don't know if it was cheating or not, but I know that you worked. I know that you worked really, really hard to have any type of impact on that national championship season. So
absolutely.
But he's like me, you know. I didn't get that Lone Star Conference ring. He didn't get that national championship ring. You know, they're always trying to hold us back.